Hello, and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, a podcast focused on men's health and emotional awareness. Jason, a licensed therapist with over 18 years of experience, and I being profoundly affected by the death of my son. We share grounded conversations and practical insights to help men navigate modern life with clarity and intention. Please like, follow, and share wherever you're listening or watching this. Doing so helps us reach more men who could be positively impacted by this material. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Instagram, and TikTok under Guys Dealings with Feelings. So what's going on, Jay?
I'm choking.
Joking. All
Something go
right.
down the wrong too.
so
It's
so we're
all
going
right,
to
I'm going high.
tackle so today we're going to tackle something that I know in the kind of the space that we're in, where motivation is a big thing that everybody's talking about. Get motivated, get motivated, get motivated. And I think motivation does have a part that it plays. But we're talking about the difference in that versus building habits and discipline. So motivation, it gets all the hype and everybody talks about it, but it's going to come and go. And the real changes are going to come when we form habits and discipline. And we're not depending on the emotion that is motivation. So motivation is how we feel. Habits are what we do repeatedly, and discipline is who we become. Why motivation is going to fail us is it's strongest at the start. It's going to fade during discomfort. Stress and boredom set in, and setbacks are going to kill any type of motivation because they're emotional. And I think that, again, I think the part that they play is definitely not a versus habit and discipline. Habit and discipline are going to win the race, but I think motivation gets us to the starting line, and that plays a part. Something had to motivate both of us to get to where we've gotten. And I think rock bottom is what we call it. And
Pain, yeah.
yeah, lots and lots of fucking pain and a feeling of helplessness, etc. But that motivated us, and we had motivation, emotional drive to get the fuck away from those feelings and the way that we were living and how our lives have become. And so we did have some motivation. And whether it's music you listen to or speakers that you listen to, but something to help um, get things going. So motivation going to kind of get us going to form the habits. But the habits, which I don't, with chicken or egg on this, maybe habits come from the discipline of continuing to do the things even when uh, the hard shit pops up. And so I think what we have to understand is that, well, I'm going to get motivated quick, but it's going to fucking go away. And in that time of motivation, I need to build as many habits using discipline as I can. And I've learned, I got a chapter about this in the book, and I learned listening to Huberman, the neuroscientist, um, that we actually have a part in our brain. You may be able to identify it, but a part in our brain that is the discipline muscle. When we don't want to do something and we do it, it grows, and when we don't exercise it, it will shrink. And eh, that occurs even when we begin to enjoy something that we might have used to hate. So working out, I hate going to the
Mhm.
gym. I hate it, and going through the motions and getting there in the hard times and pushing through, using your willpower, this part of your brain is going to grow. What does that mean? You've got more willpower. And now I've become to enjoy this time at the gym. I've made friends. I'm enjoying it. The burn feels good, blah, blah, blah. That is no longer exercise of said willpower muscle because we enjoy it. And the idea is that we have to push through that which is uncomfortable, that which we don't want to do. And in doing so, we take a step closer to being who we want to be, but we also kind of lift a little weight mentally there, wherever this is coming from. We lift that weight and it becomes stronger. Um, so I'd like to get some feedback from you. And, this may not be something that you've spent a ton of time in clinically, but what's happening there is it just an emotion? Why is habit any different than the emotional response that is motivation? And then discipline, I think, lends itself to our identity, and we've done a show on that a couple weeks ago. But kind of tie all this in for us if you can, and tell us what your thoughts are on this topic.
Sure, sure, sure. We can just define. I like how you started trying to define. So when I do the emotional intelligence workshops, this is a particular chapter. So the chapter is generally titled "Motivation and Purpose," right? And the the bottom line of what the conversation points to is that what we call motivation is actually natural to us depending on the state that our nervous system and body is in. So you can think of motivation as emotional forecasting.
Yeah, give us a
If
little,
I
what you
do
mean when you
this
say forecast.
thing, meaning there is an idea that if I can engage in these workouts regularly or eat better or lose weight, that it will feel good, but there'll be something positive that comes out of that, right? And so that can animate us forward. It can help us move in I don't know, forward direction, right? And then what happens is it's hard for us to maintain the consistency, right? Uh, because we actually start to feel the discomfort. That's a part of getting to where we want to go, right? So again, so what we call motivation, a body that can move towards discomfort and understands that that's the direction of growth, right? That is natural to us when our body is in a more natural state, when the nervous system is in a more parasympathetically activated state on a regular basis, right? So also let me define discipline, right? And there's a guy that wrote a book in 1978. His name's M. Scott Peck, Peck, and it's structured in four parts. I actually have some notes because I read it a while ago and I found it really helpful. You know, so he structures the book in four parts. Right, he structures it where he goes into the concept of discipline, love, growth, and religion and grace. He's a psychiatrist, but the book will be labeled as a spiritual or be some sort of combination of quote unquote psychiatry and spirituality. But let me define discipline as Peck defines it, right? Okay, and he defines it as a toolbox for handling life's inevitable problems. Like the first line of the book is "Life is difficult." It's the first line of the book, right? And he sees discipline as a toolkit, a toolbox, right? And so here's how he defines it. One is the primary tool. It's the ability to delay gratification. That's his first component of schedule pain before pleasure to enhance enjoyment and build maturity. Instead of impulsively seeking instant pleasure, which creates neuroses, face difficulties first. Like foundational for self control is the way he talks about it. So that's one, the ability to delay gratification, right? So when we typically talk about discipline, we're generally focused on the outside of things. Like what's the character doing? What's the behavior, you know? But this is getting at the internal mechanisms that facilitate the behavior, right? So the ability to delay gratification is the ability to tolerate discomfort. That's a muscle, which is related to the nervous system and the body, right? So the second component is complete acceptance of responsibility, completely responsible, right? Take full ownership of your problems and life. And this is his language. Neurotic people blame others for circumstances. Healthy ones accept this is my lot. This is my situation to engage with, right? So the ability to delay gratification, the acceptance of total responsibility. Hear this, the dedication to truth, commit to constant truth seeking and updating your world, right? Um, Avoid lies, denial. Most big problems stem from ignoring smaller truths earlier. This is again his language. Rigid beliefs block growth. So delaying gratification, accepting responsibility, a dedication to the truth, and then the last section he'll define as balancing. Um, we're just juggling all the multiple things we have to juggle in this modern life,
Is it
right?
a
So,
balance versus pain and pleasure? Maybe is that the balance that he discusses?
well, he's mostly speaking to the different demands that we have within all the roles that we inhabit. So, if you're a parent or what, and you got to get up and make breakfast and get the kid to school and do X, Y, or Z. Well, where exactly do you fit in taking care of the body, sitting down, doing nervous system work, working out, right? So it's balancing, I guess you could say that are the bodily needs, the bodily right, and how to dedicate attention into all these different areas of our life,
Yeah. Yes. And I love all those. And the discipline portion lends itself to I think it's more present when motivation disappears. I think about when I first started really hammering on this journey 6 years ago now, and um, getting up at getting up at 4:30 and on the street walking by 5 is just unless I'm sick or it's raining, I've
it's
got an
natural now.
alternate. It's
Yeah,
just natural now. But at the beginning, there was motivation. I had, I had the rock bottom motivating me. And then as I began to do it, that falls off and you're like, oh God, the sun's coming up again today. I got to get up and get out. And, then I started exercising the discipline to do so, and then the habit was formed, and now here I am at the habit. And really, I don't even know how much willpower is being put out at this point because I enjoy doing it. I've been able to add some interaction with my children over it, and so it's really a growing thing for me. That's a real reward, which inside of it has a little health benefit to it as well. But the second part is the respect and self trust that comes with exuding discipline. And I think a couple things you just touched on lend itself to that. And that's the accountability piece and what you called the seeking truth piece. I think I define that as um, humility, but more so being willing to be wrong. And when we are able to say, "Look, I don't know that I don't know the answers. I mean, look where I am. I'm not where I want to be, so I clearly don't have the answers I'm seeking." And when we lock down into, "I know what's this and that. I know these things," then we're locked down. We're not going to learn shit. All we're going to do is hear somebody talk, and the whole time they're talking, we are formulating the counter argument that we are going to use instead of listening to what gold they may be trying to deliver to us. I think that's ever present in today's environment, especially when we begin to talk about hot topics like politics and or religion. You get into these topics and immediately the other one, whoever, both sides put a flag in the fucking ground and they will not move off of that. I don't know if you ever saw the Dave Chappelle skit
I'm
where
sure.
where
Yeah,
he was on the stand
I'm sure.
testifying against R.
I don't know.
Kelly.
It's not. No,
So
I don't know.
okay, so he's on the stand testifying. He's talking about, I think it was how black people gonna keep it real, and he's like, Ark is not one of the keeping it real sketches, but it's like that. And R. Kelly, he's testifying in an R. Kelly case, and he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's R. Kelly. Well, sir, what if he was holding an ID? I don't know, man. What if his grandmother is talking to him while he holds his ID? Would you think so then? Ooh, his grandma's there? Like, you can present
Yeah,
this
yeah,
type
yeah.
of evidence in today's society, and people will not come off of it. And I feel like there's some other shit going on there, but I'm not trying to dive into that. But the humility to understand that, hey, maybe we got some shit we need to learn. And if you're not where you want to be anywhere in your life, then there's shit you got to learn. And if you're not open to hearing it from anybody, doesn't matter who it is. I don't know. I think Jesus said that he showed up in different ways through other people. poor people, and you turned them away, and talking about who was going to be punished or whatever. And it's so we don't necessarily when this shit's coming at us from who or whatever. So this humility piece and willingness to be wrong, I think, is huge. And then I think in doing those things, we build respect for ourselves and trust for ourselves because we know, hey, I'm listening, bro. I am happy to be wrong about anything. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'm going to be wrong about some things, but I'm willing to be, and I want to listen so that I hear this. So anyway, all that to say, with that discipline definition, I can see how the self respect and self trust begin to build on themselves, and then discipline turns into a habit, and then once we have a habit,
Yeah, the
I
ability
think,
to move towards that which we typically avoid,
yeah,
right? And when
yeah,
I started to do certain things when I started to see the deeper implications of this, right? So it generally happens to us 1,000 times a day where we'll say, "Ah, I'll do it later," something like that. Like we put it off, you know. Um, and I started to recognize that as a habitual tendency towards sort of like what how you referred to earlier, towards pleasure over momentary discomfort, right? Started to when I started to realize that what we're calling motivation is really our capacity for discomfort. It is directly related to that. And so I started to get an idea of how it played out in my just day to day life. And part of the way it played out is just a tendency to put things off. It could be from, I don't know, something in the sink to the laundry. I don't, it's pretty endless how often we say, I'll do it later, and how we just kind of avoid and don't attend to things in our life, right? And so when I started to recognize that as being uh, a byproduct of not being okay with discomfort, actually, right? So a lack of discipline, really. But meaning the ability to be uncomfortable, to delay gratification. I started to be able to move towards those moments in my life. And so I started just noticing them everywhere. I'd walk away from the washing machine and go, I'll do it later. And then I'd just stop and I'd turn around and go towards it. It was a really useful practice, right? See, what most people do, because we don't really relate to motivation and discipline at that level, at the level of what's happening in the body. It's not how we relate to it. We relate to it as a sort of personality characteristic. And so what happens most of the time when we're unable to continue to move towards the goal that we want, right? Because actually learning how to tolerate discomfort is immensely complicated and complex. Uh, People actually feel bad about themselves, and it sort of becomes this a part of an identity, right? Uh, which kind of what you referenced to earlier when people get stuck on identities of it doesn't really is left, right, whatever it is. Uh, that's an identity problem, right? So that person is not actually at the depths of truth that we're just human, and those labels are related to this world and the experiences that we have and the conditioning that we experience and the programming that we go through, which actually separates us from each other. And that happens at the level of identity. Um, so, what happens when we're unable to move towards the discomfort on a regular basis because nobody's told us how this relates to our body and our nervous system, right? People, again, yeah, they interpret it as a personal failure, right?
and so you go the opposite way of self respect and
Yeah.
self trust.
Yep, 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 yep. And it's actually very paradoxical because if you really want to increase your quote unquote motivation or the ability to move in the direction of what's uncomfortable, it really means stopping, slowing down. You have to slow down, begin to engage the nervous system, right? Begin a process of letting it rebalance and not be so unconsciously afraid of tension and discomfort. Um, and then what we call motivation begins to occur naturally, like you're describing in your own experience.
Yeah, and two things there. We're going to get a little further into identity, but first, I think this is where the bed making thing comes up for a lot of motivational speakers. Anybody who's found success, they say they start the day with this, and
I
they
do it
really
every
start
morning.
right. As do I, and I believe it's just another example of what you were talking about when you turn away from the laundry. Another common one I have is if you see something on the ground or the floor, stopping to pick it up. And not
Yeah,
doing so is as damaging
yeah,
as doing so is helpful.
yeah. So I have a friend, right? And I mean, this is common, but for whatever reason, this person popped in my mind. And one of their issues is that things back up in their life, whether it be the dishes or the laundry or cleaning the house, right? She has this tendency to get behind on those things, right? And so, uh, and she doesn't know that that's related to her nervous system. It's related to how her body's operating. She didn't know that. So it is something that makes her feel really poorly about herself, right? And part of also what's happening there is at the deepest level, the deepest engagement that we can have as humans is right where we are, engaging in what life has put right in front of us. It doesn't matter whether it's the laundry or sweeping the floor, whatever it is. That's what life has put in front of us. That's our task to engage in that. But what happens with many of us is it's how can I say this? There's like we think other things are going to make us happy. So the mind tends to focus on these other things that it's been programmed and conditioned to right instead of just engaging right where you are, right? And so her body has a really difficult time slowing down, and being present with what's happening in her life and what she needs to attend to. Very difficult. It's very difficult for her to do that. Her life is really lived in the future. Like when these things happen, when I get this, when this occurs, right? You see what I mean? Emotional forecasting. When I lose weight, when uh, it's going to feel this way, right? And just a side note, I've worked with many people that have had gastric bypass surgery, and part of that process is people have to get therapy prior to uh, essentially getting signed off for it. I don't know. Sort of sounds dramatic, but that's a part of the process. And so what often happens, people lose that weight and it doesn't provide the feeling that was forecasted. It doesn't change how they relate to themselves, really. Uh, Often that's what happens. And so the weight comes back on. That's a regular occurrence.
And it seems from where I now sit, and it's not in a seat of judgment by any stretch of the
No, no, no.
imagination, but it seems so clear to me now. It's because it ain't the weight that's got you fucked up. It's the way that you got to the weight that's got you fucked up. And the work to get out of that is what's going to heal you. And it's more than just showing up at the gym. It's the process of getting to the fucking gym
Yeah,
and the
yeah, yeah.
pushing through the discomfort.
Yeah. And I would say the thing that ultimately produces a person like that is a system and a world that does not give us clear information on who we are, what we're doing here, what it means to have a body, mind, and how to operate it. Right. So the system pulls our attention out into it. It doesn't tell us who we are at the deepest level. Right. And so then the system produces depressed people, anxious people, overweight people. That's what the system produces. And then it gaslights those individuals into imagining that it's them, as somehow it's their failure, right? And it's not. It's that we come into a very brutal environment. It's so brutal that we have no clue of what it means to exist in these bodies, to be here, to be present, to feel the weight of this experience, you know? We don't
and
have
we're
any capacity for that.
and we're being preyed upon, in the during this
Man, do you know
stuff.
you can look this up, and you saw my post the other day on Facebook where I made a post about when the cigarette industry began
Took
to
over the food.
purchase the food industry, and they literally took the playbook of addiction and addicting a population and brought it into the food industry. This is not conspiratorial. This is what has happened to us. Do you understand? And then there's and we're all struggling under the weight of the idea that we've done something wrong or that we're incapable or something's wrong with us, you know?
And
It makes me very passionate when I uh
yeah, and the same social media has done the same thing to our needing gratification, immediate gratification. It's
yes.
fucking destroying the children because they're getting all these dopamine hits so frequently and so and I don't know all the science behind it, but that's the best thing I can say about it. They're getting all these dumps that they shouldn't be getting, and they're gonna
If
be
you
even
don't
further from stopping
yeah,
and picking
yeah,
the
yeah,
trash
yeah,
up.
yeah. Until until a person actually has a lived experience, all the jargon about the brain and the information about it is irrelevant. It makes no difference. It's just, I don't know. It just sounds good. Like it's all good. It's fine. You talk about the reticulator activating system and all these things. It's fine, man. But it's not until we actually experience what it feels like in the body do we actually learn and grow. Like all that information is that it doesn't really matter. Like
No, but I think it's a, tool
yeah,
that is that men especially need logic to be able to get from A to B. There's gotta be a logical
sure, whatever gets you
connection
there.
to get them there, and so I think that's a tool to getting people there. So, I think that so let's go back to the identity part, and I think the question here is, if without changing identity, or can goals alone drive us to success? In other words, do we rise to our goals, or are we going to always fall back to our identity? And again, we've done a complete episode on identity, but obviously we can continue to expand. How does the is it that practice you were just referring to, the practice of going towards the discomfort, the practice of delaying gratification? The practice makes perfect. The practice builds the identity. I am a person who waits for my rewards. I am a person who does not shy away from discomfort. Is that how it becomes our identity? Is the practice? Because I think that's the identity is what I was talking about. The journey that gets you there. You
Yeah, I
change
see
your
what you're saying.
identity of who
I mean,
you are.
often that is what happens for us, right? Like somebody starts working out or whatever. We start working out and then we do it for a while. And then, I don't know, we just start seeing ourselves as somebody that works out. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that it definitely is a part of what happens for us, you know? Um, I mean, something a bit more fundamental, you know? Like, for instance, we have this idea in this culture that we're inbrained, that the brain is the ruler of all, right? You can hear it in the language regularly. My brain did this, my brain did that, right? But the problem with that is that's not true. We're embodied. And the vast majority of humans are not able to experience life deeply in their body. That's why the majority of us are in the head all the time, regularly, past, future, daydreams, right? That is literally an expression of not being in the body, not having a full experience here as this temporary character.
Right.
Uh, so for us, what happens is we're given an identity, we're given a name, we're in a culture. That culture, I don't know, the culture somehow. Well, for us, it was through screens generally. The culture tells its new, uh, its new children, right? Like its new citizens. It tells it, well, this is who you are. This is where you came from. This is what's going on, right? Except in our culture, we're not really told that very explicitly, you know. And actually, we're told something deeply disturbing, So we're told from a evolutionary biological perspective that what the cell's main function is survival. So we're actually told that we're at the mercy of genes, right? Where and what we don't recognize is what that is actually presenting to us is that there's chance in the universe, that there is such a thing called randomness, right? We don't recognize that, but that is actually what we're told, right? Okay. Now, what's insane about that, utterly insane, and actually the source of all our problems, is that we're not separate from, and it's not possible for life to be random. The universe wouldn't hold itself together. I mean, do you see what I mean? It's a logical, how could that be possible? It can't be. Um, and so, instead of our knowing that we come into this world, a part of a species, right? And this world is going to give us an identity, but it's actually just a very limited identity to this temporary experience that we're having. And that we are actually much more than this limited temporary character. Not to minimize the beauty, and these temporary characters are how we get to be in this place and love and live and eat and smell and fight and all fuck all the things that we do, um, which is uh, which is a blessing, and to say the least. It's just for most of us, it feels like torture because we weren't given the appropriate information of who we are. That we're not limited to these characters. It's okay. Like, you don't have to be afraid. You're not separate from life. Everything is intentional here. Everything is meaningful. Everything has its place. Everything has its place. It's okay. Um, we're not told that, you know?
No, to your point, we're given an identity. In most cultures, it includes a religion. It includes how you dress, what you listen to, what you're
Mhm.
taught in
What's
schools.
okay to express, what's not
Yeah,
okay to express, right?
all of that is driven into us at a very young, molding
From the
age,
beginning.
that from the very beginning, and then we have to kind of work ourselves backwards out of that as adults once we hit a rock bottom and try to form this new identity that is really who we are. And we're fighting upstream, or salmon swimming upstream, because everything inside of us, the people who, is telling us, no, this is not right, because the people who brought me into this world, my parents and the people that they learned from, so my grandparents, and the society which I live in, which includes my pastor and my teachers and all these people, are all telling me these things that I'm now kind of unwinding. And so it's serious. And I think we fail to recognize what an uphill challenge it is. And therefore, again, when it is so tough, kind of give up. And I was reminded about this. I met an individual, a father who lost a child, and we were talking, and there's not a lot of resources out there for specifically dads who have lost children. Uh, and we've talked about it's not profitable, but where he is in the process is so, like, it's like a microcosm of what we're talking about, in that he's so stuck and hung up in trying to make these connections that there ain't no making connections to. And because of his lack of, it's not lack of anything, because he's stuck in his head,
Mm.
he's in that loop. And why it's so wild to me is being able to it puts me right back where he is in that process. And that, but I explained to him, I said, you're not hurting me, brother. You're helping me. You're keeping me grounded. You're letting me know what I'm out here trying to do to get better every day, why I'm trying to get better every day, that it's a constant thing, because I can be back in that place. And uh, it comes back to being present, and just, look, we're in a fucking bad situation here, bro. That's where we're at. We're in a really bad situation, but we can't start off okay. we've got to go work through the whole thing. And it's interesting to me because again, I was in the exact same position. You know, his child passed in a little different way, but again, it was one of those deals where he went to work and came home and she had gone. And the same thing I dealt with. And it's just so interesting to see how we can get stuck, and it takes something to jar us loose.
Mhm,
Clinically, I think
mhm,
EMDR is the first thing I suggested. You know, there's other alternative medicines that help
mhm,
me out too, but it's making the, neural pathway, some shit gets broken during the trauma, and we gotta put all that together. But really, I think it's, so many huge strides I made were on this topic that we're talking about. It was the it was exuding the discipline and continuing to exude the discipline, and when I don't exude discipline, how now I feel shitty about not exuding the discipline versus, when I started, I felt shitty having to exude the discipline. So there has been a fundamental swap in me, and maybe that's why I'm so relieved to be on what I call the other side of this thing. Obviously, I could get back into a shitty position. Obviously, I can make some decisions in life that could put me in a harder position than I find myself in. But I'm stringing together so many good decisions in life and putting so many things together. Even when I fall back, I'm quick to get right back on the horse, and it's all part of this. And I just um, I don't know. That's why that's our mission, you and I, with this podcast is that's really what we're trying to do is people don't understand that stopping to pick up a piece of trash could be helpful in their recovery from losing a child. And I understand why they don't understand that. But what Jason and I are really trying to drive home is it fucking matters. It all matters. It matters how you talk to the clerk when you're checking out at the gas station. It matters how you talk to your partner and your children and your workmates. It matters how, the perspective that you take, whether it's positive or negative. And today, in habits and discipline, in building these things, you are doing things in your body, to Jason's point about how it gets us back into our bodies where we need to be to heal and to really make this get back into this connection, um, that, Jason is saying there's zero chance could be random. And I think, again, like we fail to acknowledge that we're on a rock floating in space, we also fail to realize what's going on inside these bodies of ours. In talking to my kid who's getting their PhD right now, they told me that there are a million. God, I know I'm gonna fuck this up. It's a million a trillion pairs of DNA inside of each cell, of which we have a trillion of. So inside each cell, there's a trillion pairs of DNA, and then we have a trillion cells. And to think that these things are random, just like gravity, which if it was off just a little bit, we'd be crushed or we'd float off, is a hard stretch. And
yeah,
and
yeah.
and, and I don't,
Now, and I've heard 60 trillion cells, but do you relate to
yeah, there's
yourself?
trillions.
Do
It's ass.
you
There's trillions.
do you relate to the bacteria that's in your body right now as you?
No, I'm too far removed from it. I'm so removed from it. I'm still trying to just get out of my
But I mean,
head.
the bacteria is in right now. There's bacteria that would be in your calves and in your
Yeah, sure.
tummy. Is that
There's
you?
all kinds of shit in there that's
Is
in
it
there.
you?
Not that I identify with. I
I
think
mean,
it
it's just
is,
a,
but
it's more of a, yeah, it's
yeah, it's
a,
yeah, it's a philosophical question. And
yeah.
I think, that's uh,
We don't,
when we
again, we don't relate to things at that level. Hold on. Individual mind cannot wrap its head around that amount of complexity. It's infinitely astronomically the mind cannot grasp it. It's not possible, right? So, but okay, but that's who we are. That's where we are right now. That's the truth of things. 60 trillion things, a trillion things, and a trillion things, and a trillion smaller things, and say what?
right,
Now,
exactly.
instead of that being a part of our wonder and it blowing our mind as to who we are and on a regular basis, what's happened for us because of the nature of this environment being so brutal with wars and heat and just all that we go through, all that the body experiences, we are stuck in a loop of survival in a dog eat dog world that's about competition where where everywhere there's differences and everybody's different, right? But the truth is that it's not true. That's part of the programming conditioning here. Um, but that's what our life's become. It's just this survival merry-go-round.
It's similar to the loop that my new friend is stuck in trying to make connections to what there's you're not going to connect it, bro. Like
Well,
it's not.
because what happens for us when we use the word conditioning, that is actually a neurophysiological process that involves rigid neurological structures, separations between the hemispheres, like a complete internal sense of separation. That is what I refer to when I say conditioning, primarily. Now, yes, we're getting stories and the programming is being forced on a regular basis for us, right? You see what I'm trying to say? So then we get information on what it means to be white, what it means to be black, what it means to be this, what it means to be that, what it means to be a Republican, what it means to be a liberal, da 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 da. That, and so that programming comes at us regularly, right?
Almost constant with social media.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because the deeper game here for all of us is seeing through all that to the truth of who we are, uh, who we are as one brotherhood and sisterhood. And if you can just imagine, even if you're in space and you're looking down, man, all those lines on the map and stuff, they don't really exist. And everything starts looking real like similar, you know. But we're too far down in it to have that kind of perspective, right? Um,
And having it lends us to doing more fulfilling, rewarding things that do end up
being of service.
encouraging happiness and satisfaction full
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
gastro
Yeah, because
uh,
part of what happens when you get
and just
free of the
becoming
conditioning is it starts to help you have clarity around what really matters.
yeah, right. Right. And all of it lends to itself. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. It's the
Yeah.
same. It's that loop that we'll get stuck in a loop and we can't get out and we think this is it and we just gotta. So anyway, all right.
The
So our
loop
tool
that we're
for
stuck in is that we don't realize that what's happening is actually right here.
and then we're fed more and we
And
continue to follow. Yeah.
the loop is that our attention
Yeah.
keeps stuck on the outside, that there's solutions out here that we can find, a book we can read, or this, da, 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 and that's fine. I'm not saying those things are helpful. I've read many books, you know what I mean? But it wasn't until the
Yeah, you got to do the work.
yeah,
You can read a book about lifting weights,
yeah,
which means you go in there and don't hurt yourself. But
sure,
until you pick the some bitches up, you're not going to get any
nothing
stronger.
happens yet.
So our tool for this week is the non-negotiable three. Choose three daily actions that happen no matter what. So we're going to be forming a habit, creating some discipline. 10 minutes of movement, 5 minutes of journaling, and then an intentional conversation or reading something that will encourage learning. Making your bed. We got fitness, so we're moving when we don't want to. Relationships, we're talking even when it's uncomfortable. And in business and life, small, consistent actions to build momentum. And I think kind of one that you can just keep in the back of your head at all times. It's the little test that Jason was talking about. And I did, I think I had such a fundamental shift when I began to do the same thing. And I say picking up trash. If you see a sock on the floor, or you see a crumb on the floor, or a feather's come out of the down comforter, or whatever,
Uh-huh. You got dishes in the
it
sink.
you got this. Don't say I'll do it later. Of course, I'm sure you can create a reason not to do it right then. And I don't think either of us is suggesting that if the house is on fire, that you stop and knock the dishes out before exiting, or if the kids got to be picked up at school. But what you'll find is that you'll begin to understand and learn. And so if you got up at 5 and you knocked the dishes out, then at 8, when the kids got to go to school, you don't have a full thing of dishes that you're looking at and having to turn away from.
Uh-huh.
We've already created a pattern to help ourselves with that. So,
Yeah.
these things are so crucial, and we can't really say it enough that you have to start on some of these simpler tasks and then delve into the core part of it. I refer back to my tattooing. I've got an extraordinary amount of tattoos, and the reason that it all started was because of the mental discipline that I had to go through because the shit hurts. And anybody that says getting tattoos don't hurt is full of shit. They all hurt, every one of them. Some of them
Seems
worse
like
than
it.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they definitely all hurt. And so the longer you go in them, the more that they will hurt. And so to get through that, you have to have the kind of the mind control. It's all this growth that comes with that. Side note, little life hack: instead of covering your body in tattoos, as I've done, you can start doing marathon running. You experience a lot of the same pain and fight through, and you're not covered in tattoos when it's done. So anyway, our future is going to be built on the days that we don't feel inspired. We're going to build habits. We're going to practice discipline. We're going to become the person who shows up, who understands that every action, no matter how small, is a building block in becoming the best version of you. As always, we sure do appreciate you giving us your time, which is the most valuable asset. And until next time, stay in the fight. The world is a much better place with you in it. All right. My fuck it.